you touched on a couple of things there that are very important, and I wanna zoom in a little bit into that because on one hand there are industries out there, right? There's the industry of food, there's the industry of exercise, there's the industry of how we look, right? And all these industries are out there telling us what to do. And I agree with you. I live a very similar life today, very different than my early life. I question everything today. I question my thoughts, I question my feelings, I question my emotions, because I know that they're not mine. I'm just the experiencer of those things, right? And similarly, if I question everything internal, I gotta be able to question everything external too. But with that questioning comes a sense of responsibility as well, right? Of being honest with yourself and being honest with society and your community and your family and your friends that whatever works for me may not work for everybody else, right? So I want to dive into that part because you today what you do is you help people, right? You have these retreats, where people can come in and they can take part of the philosophy of life that you've created, for yourself that has brought you from where you were to where you are now. And I'm assuming that part of that experience involves not just mindset, not just what you eat, not, only about quality of sleep, but also about the intentional movement that we do every day. That the movement that we have to do in order to be flexible and strong, but not necessarily to look a certain way. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience of what you offer people when they sign up to work with you?
I still need to get better at that, I think. So because over the years, it became so much. I told you about my entire life experience with sports, played tennis, did track and field, skiing, mountain biking. I tried like a lot of different stuff. So from my understanding, what I learned, my body and my mind just work differently. So I'm prone to the learning stuff, movement based, very easily. And for other people, it's not like that. But yoga also offered me a framework from that mind-body perspective. But then I thought I went into different stuff. I tried calisthenics, so body weight strength training. And because of all my injuries from exactly that sports history, I did a lot of self-physical therapy, went into biomechanics, very deep, how the body works in terms of movement, joints, fascia, a lot of fascia work, but then also working with the nervous system. And fascia is an entire nervous system by itself. So a lot of that personal experience I try to incorporate into what I do with people, and I often can't really pinpoint what I do with them, because I called it at one point beyond movement, because it goes beyond movement, and but still it's movement, and it's strength-based movement. People would call that probably often functional mobility, because I try to make it as functional as possible. That's the essence for me. We want to be functional. And as you said, the looks are great. And there's an entire industry out there for that. But looks is not equal, or it doesn't equal functionality often. Because if like a bodybuilder doesn't have the capability to raise his arms higher than this because of all his muscles and his restrictions, then it's not functional for me. So But what we want is strength, of course. Strength is the mother of all skills, and you need strength for flexibility, you need strength for mobility, and you need strength for endurance. So strength is always the basis. That's where we start. But then our modern lifestyle with sitting most of the time, that also creates its own restrictions. So usually hip flexors are shortened, tight, and when they're shortened and tight, they're also weak. Then posture is not the best usually. Then it affects the spine, it affects shoulder blade mobility. So everything works together, so the entire physical system, and then it creates imbalances. And what I usually do is I start with incorporating exactly that. So we work basically on weeding out the imbalances, so rebalancing that. Because over the years, it got very clear that you can do a lot of strength stuff and just make the imbalances even worse if you not work on them at the same time or simultaneously. So this is where I try to incorporate exactly that. And then it depends on what the client usually wants. So as I said, the business owner, CEO friend, that was one of my first ones. Then like for Caddy and I, so my girlfriend is a nutritionist. So we did that. So we have this holistic concept. And the first client that we had together was a startup founder and his wife. And then we also found that this is something or people we want to work with because they have a different mindset and they're already in the growth and exploration and curiosity mindset. So with them, we did something similar, also like working on strength, working on mobility, but then it depends always what you want. So if you want more of that calm, because usually people come to us for energy, so they have a stressful life, and then we incorporate also mindfulness, most importantly, awareness, reframing stuff, putting things off the plate. So that's where we start with exactly that, weeding out the unnecessary things that cost you your energy. So we call that energy audit, and it could be people, it could be to-dos, it could be stuff, it could be like whatever drains your energy. And then we like not add too much in the beginning, so we do just the right amount to get started. So tiny things to do to not overwhelm people, and that it always depends on them. But as you said, it's always challenging as well, because you need that challenge. You need to get out of your comfort zone of what you're used to do to what you want to become. And there needs a little bit of friction. So for progression, you want also the resistance. Without resistance, there is no growth. But on the other hand, you want to reduce the unnecessary friction or the unnecessary blockages. Also internally, like in terms of muscular restrictions, but also mental blockages.
That's very interesting. So again, we have a lot of overlap in a lot of the stuff that we use for our everyday lives. One of the things that I wanted to point out is you reminded me of a term called ontological design. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's I think, well, I don't know if Dispensa talks about that. I read it through, I think, Jason Silva, and I looked it up, and it's basically that we as humans, we are creators, right? So we create a lot of things. We are by definition probably the better creators of nature, right? Because we've transformed the environment more than any other creature out there, for good and for bad, right?
Mm.
But ontological design talks about the fact that as you create an environment, then over time that environment creates you back, right? Or it designs you. So it's ontological design. We design things and then those things design us back. We've
Yeah.
designed a lifestyle of comfort, right? Where we sit a lot,
Yeah.
right? Where we have more access to food than, any other time in recorded history, right? But then those things design us back, and in this case not in a good way, because then we sit too long, we eat too much, we don't eat the right things. You mentioned milk. We're the only mammals that consume milk, not only from another mammal, right, but we consume it past the period of lactation, right? And if you know the fact that milk, what is milk? Milk is a cocktail of hormones specifically designed for rapid growth. Well, after you've grown to your size, that could become a problem for some people, right? So we've designed this society, we've designed these things, we've designed these tools, and then they design us back. And in some ways, if we're not cognizant that in some ways that design is detrimental, then we are unconsciously suffering, and then we don't know what
Mm.
happened. Then you end up being burnt out, and you end up being sick, and you end up being this and that. So we have a lot of parallels in the way that we see the world. But I think what I find interesting is that I'm gonna say something and let you see if you agree, because for me, I work on a lot of trying to improve people's mindset, right? In
Yeah.
coaching, I don't call it coaching because I don't see myself as a coach. I see myself more as a mentor. Um,
Mm.
and to me, the difference is that as a mentor, I'm not gonna chase you around to do what you're supposed to do. I'm gonna share with you, and if you're serious, then go do it. I'm not gonna be calling you and bugging you, and no, go do what you have to do, right? You're a big boy, you're a big girl, go do what you have to do. But I find that you said something. It's like, oh, these people are executives, they're founders. They already have a particular mindset, right? What I find is that I my clientele is significantly reduced because of that, because the average person wants instant gratification. They don't want to do the work. And I tell people all the time, it's like, if you go to the gym today and you work out for an hour, you go home, you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you see? Nothing,
Nothing.
right? And then you go tomorrow, and then and then you go back home and you look in the mirror again. What do you see? Nothing. And you're going to see nothing for a while. Similarly, if I go to the gym for 10 hours today and I go look in the mirror, what do I see? Nothing. In fact, I probably hurt myself, right? So the idea of going to meditate, for 10 hours, and then expect a life-changing thing, it is about the details. It is about the work that you have to put on, but it's also about the patience to see the work create results. And entrepreneurs and founders and people that are, in C-level corporate world, on average, they have the understanding that they're gonna have to do hard work, and then they're gonna have to wait for that work to yield. So, in essence, for me, my experience is that a, the addressable market of the people that I could be working with becomes very small, because on
Yes.
average, they want an app, they want a pill, they want the next thing that's gonna give me the fastest result, whether it's the Ozempic injection or this or that or whatever, right? When in reality, all we have to do is, like you say, 3 times a week of intentional work, 3 times a week of functional work, 10, 20 minutes a day of mindset work, 10, 20 minutes a day of education, reading something challenging to the brain, and then be patient. You know, Do you see the same thing with the people you work with?
Absolutely, yes. Couldn't agree more. But because, yeah, I think that's exactly the point that I found there are two types of people. And it's always hard to say there are only two types of people, but it's easier to frame it like that. So in terms of those people we talk about, they're usually the types that already know that the health and fitness and mindset and whatever, like the meditation stuff, that it's super important and it's the foundation for anything that comes after. So you fill your cup first. And often it's only that they probably don't have the time or the guidance. You call yourself a mentor. I would say I am pretty much the same, but I call myself a coach. But the wording is not important.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a guide who walks alongside the other person and helps him through his challenges and grow. So it's about the what and the how, because this is often important. And then it's not only about telling the other person what to do, also let them discover on what works for them. Mm-hmm. And for that, we use experiments. And I just want to get to the other type of person that is usually the one who probably knows that it's good, but still sidelines it because he or she thinks that other stuff is more important.
Yeah.
And then it needs this. I always I've been tinkering about that the past 10 years since it happened to me. Does it always need to be that way, that you need to hit rock bottom, that you need to face that life-changing challenge, that you then change? Or what is it that prevents people from going down that road? And I haven't found the answer yet. I read from I don't remember who it said, but I read that it could also be just a perspective shift that gets you into a completely different direction if it hits like your core and it's the right moment. It could be that, and you don't need to hit rock bottom or burnout or have that the disease or the health issue or whatever. I would love to be it like that it's just like people like us probably talking about that stuff, and people realize, oh, okay, this is something that I want to do, and it sounds like doable, and so I get someone who helps me with that, or I take the time and research myself. So I've done both. I worked with people, but mostly I did my own research because I'm that curious guy, and I wanted to take the time. But if you don't have the time, the only shortcut that is out there is having someone who's been through stuff help you on your way. And I think that's the only shortcut. Other than that, you still need to do the work, and you still need to figure things out. And it's the same in business. So no one can tell you how to do business or how to start a business or how to develop it. It's just like they can give you a framework or hints how to do it, but you still need to figure out your own way of doing this. And I think this is the part of mentoring you mentioned, but it's also for us. We do it as experiments, so we see what works for people, and sometimes it needs some. Of course, we have our experience and we've seen a lot of stuff, so we usually get into the right direction very quickly. But still, to find exactly what works, that's often it needs some adjustment along the way. So from my project management background, I do this in sprints. So this could be weekly or bi-weekly sprints, and we just try stuff, see how it works, see how it feels, and then pivot or proceed, or just adjust. And I think that's for me that's been the best way to do those things, to find your own way.
It gives you the opportunity of making the program an individual program, right? I think that's one of the challenges that we have today is that, at least I'm learning that there is no one diet, right? There is no one nutritional program. There is no one workout program that works for I'm not going to say for everybody, but even for a large group of people. There's a lot of stuff that won't work. There's a lot of stuff that we've learned that is actually detrimental for most people, right? But we have evolved so much and so far away from where our ancestors were, right? You go back, if you read some of my stuff, you go back, 250,000 years ago. Our ancestors were pretty much built the same way we are today. Very similar brain, very similar body, but they lived in an entirely different world. Even after the first agricultural revolution, right, which was about 13,000 years ago, those people, those ancestors, they looked exactly like us, but the world around them was completely different than our world. And that design, that you design your ecosystem and then your ecosystem designs you back. We are now in a place in our history where my body is not only dramatically different than my ancestor's body in the sense and how it works, and how it processes different things, because I've been designed by what I was given when I was a baby and where I was born and the thoughts that were implanted in my head, etc., etc. But I'm also extremely different than you, because you grew up, in Germany. I grew up in Panama. I've been living in the United States. I lived in a couple of different countries along the way, and all that has created this body and this mind. So it gets very difficult. It's getting increasingly difficult to come up with solutions that fit a large group of people, because more and more people are so different in their backgrounds and how they live their day-to-day lives. So I think what you're doing, using your program, your project management skills to fine-tune the program to the individual, is precisely what we need, because even though we're human, we still interact. We may look the same externally, but how we react to exercise, to nutrition, and so forth, there's going to be nuances and differences between person and person. So you have to try it out. Like you say, you have to kind of experiment. What works for this person? What works for this other person? So I think that's kind of interesting. It's kind of wonderful that you're doing it that way.
Yeah, there are often basics. My girlfriend is from Sicily, Italy, so her background is like the heart of the Mediterranean diet, which is now, it's like promoted all over the world as one of the healthiest diets, and it probably is. Still, if you grew up in Norway or Sweden and you're used to a completely different diet, then probably the Mediterranean diet is not the one for you. And also when people say, oh yeah, here, try Ayurveda, yeah, that might be a good thing. And some stuff like ashwagandha or whatever originates from that part of the world might be good for you, but it might not be good for you as well. So it's not for like that the one thing works for all people because it works for some people. I also met people who who tried vegan diet for a couple of years, found that it was not working for them, and then they switched completely, and now they're on an entire carnivore diet. And that somehow works for them. I can't imagine, but it somehow works for them. And I would even say that it doesn't have to be like one or the other. So I never would call myself a vegetarian, a vegan. I eat everything, but I'm intentional with what I eat. So I eat local stuff, seasonal stuff, mostly plant-based. If then usually Mediterranean, so fish, seafood stuff, but also because I don't like fancy meat anymore. I don't eat pork, chicken sometimes, but that's it. So, and you find that, and it's also experimentation. You find what works for your body, and what kind of breakfast gives you energy till noon without any crashes, without any cravings, and then especially when I switched to a lighter or well balanced lunch, I found that I don't have that afternoon crash anymore, that 3 o'clock afternoon slump. I'm not tired in the afternoon, and if I am, I just take my 10 minutes, do a quick nap, and then that's it, and I'm back on. And also I have a much better sleep at night if I have a light dinner, and it's not at 9 or 10, it's at 6 or 7. So yeah, this might also work for most people, but you have to try that, and you have to find out your own, if it works for you, and what and how it works for you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Marcus, this is what always happens in this program is you blink and 55 minutes have gone by.
I see it, yeah.
So I want to leave you the last word. As you know, that the name of this podcast is Three Thoughts On, and today is Three Thoughts On Marcus, and Marcus's practice of helping people become better versions of themselves. So what 3 thoughts, 3 actions, 3 ideas, 3 sources of inspiration, whatever you want to choose, would you want to leave the audience with before we depart?
I end almost every of my LinkedIn posts with move your body, calm your mind, thrive in life. And I think that's already the 3. So move more or move better, calm your mind, do less thinking, less worrying, and for thriving in life, just keep that growth mindset. Try stuff, experiment, and live it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Where can people find more about you? You have a website or that people can go to so they can learn about your work and how they can contact you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. As you found me, I post there usually 4 to 5 times a week. We have our website is theenergylab.co. We also have a bi-weekly newsletter where we usually share our ideas, and we have a ton of newsletters from past episodes, and also a ton of articles where people can learn more about what we do, how we see things, and we try to educate as much as possible. There are also our programs, our coachings, our upcoming retreat in November in Sicily, online program. So for the what I said before, the rebalancing of the body, I developed an online program. You can also find that there. All that stuff is on theenergylab.co.
Energylab.co. Marcus, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Hopefully this conversation was good for you. Hopefully you can use this and get more people to come see you. Maybe sometime this year I can come see you as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity, Rafael. Thank you.